it was the impact that it had had on that man. I always say young person, but at the end of the day he was 40, and this had been happening to him since he was 14 years of age. Hi, I'm Phil Brewer. I am a former police officer. I served with the Met for 30 years, and for 5 of those years I was investigating modern slavery and human trafficking offences, both in the UK and across Europe. 2 cases that probably stick in my mind the most. One involved a guy who had been held in domestic servitude for literally his whole adult life. So had been recruited by a couple in Nigeria as a houseboy, brought to the UK when they were given contracts working for the National Health Service, and lived in northwest London with them, effectively running the household for them, bringing up their children. And although that was a case that had already started when I became involved in investigating these crimes, it was, I think it was just the impact that it had had on that man. I always say young person, but at the end of the day he was 40, and this had been happening to him since he was 14 years of age. You know, his life consisted of 2 carrier bags. His bed was a rolled up foam mattress that was kept under the stairs. When the family went to bed, he got it out, slept on the floor, and then when they got up, he had to roll the mattress away and it was put back. And that was his life. And you know, I still remember, again, although my sort of part of the investigation came after this, I still remember my colleagues talking about the fact that when they knocked on the door and found him alone because the family had returned to Nigeria for Christmas, they left the webcam by the front door and had told him that if you leave when you're not supposed to, we'll know because we'll be monitoring it. And he couldn't bring himself to sit in the living room with the police officers because he was never allowed in there unless it was to clean or to look after the children. So you could see the psychological damage that it had done. So that was one case. If you look at his journey as well, you know, there were a couple of times where he approached police, he approached the local authority, and whether it was miscommunication or he didn't explain himself, or the police or the local authority staff didn't understand what he was trying to tell them, he didn't receive the support that he needed. And what it was, one of his few possessions that he had was a radio. He bought it himself, and he used to listen to Radio 4, and it was effectively part of how he'd taught himself to speak English, with that, and also a small group of friends that he had through the church that he attended. And he was listening to Radio 4, and he was actually listening to a programme that was talking about another one of the cases that my team dealt with, which involved a Maoist cult in Brixton. And he recognised similarities in what was being described within that programme to his situation. And it was through that and through the support of his friends that he reached out to a charity for help. That charity contacted the police. So in terms of the 2 people that held their houseboy in domestic servitude for all those years, they were convicted of domestic servitude, and this was pre the Modern Slavery Act, and they received 6 years imprisonment. That epiphany moment for me was actually realising this was just more than a crime. It's not something that just happens to you. You are a victim, you're looked after, hopefully, and then you continue on your journey. It changes everything about the individual that it impacts on. And I guess that was the bit that really stuck with me. It was recognising that sort of within all victims and survivors of modern slavery, there will be some enabler to exploitation. There'll be a reason, and it could be a financial issue. It could just be from the community that they're from, that there's an enhanced risk of exploitation. It's so much more than just a crime happening to you. And I guess that was the bit that sort of really grabbed my sort of focus and sort of left me really wanting to know more and recognising how I can support victims and survivors, and also bring to justice those people that were involved in the exploitation.